Welcome to the African Women in Law Legacy Project. Today we have an extraordinary woman in justice. I feel like I should call her Lady Justice of First, and that's Justice Effie Owuor. I said you were a woman of first, and I just have to read the list of the first. The first Kenyan woman to receive a law degree from University of Dar, the first woman prosecutor in the Kenyan office of the Attorney General, first to become a magistrate, first to be a senior magistrate, resident judge, first woman to sit on the Court of Appeals in Kenya, and first to sit on the Commission of Inquiry. So many firsts. But you know what, Justice Effie, you were not born with a black robe and a wig. Your journey began in Kakamega. Can you share with us what it was like growing up in Kakamega?
And mine is a long story. It goes back 78 years. I'll be 79 on 21st of September. So that is a long, long time. But looking back, it's only as if it is yesterday. I was born in a small village in Kakamega. Born of parents, both professional. My father was a teacher. My mother was a midwife, both professionals. So I was a bit lucky from the beginning. In those days, people of my father and my mother's age weren't necessarily professionals. So I was brought up maybe in a little bit of a privileged background from the word go. I grew up like any other ordinary child, but maybe with the guidance of parents who knew what they wanted for their children. My father being a teacher, he had failed to be a lawyer. He couldn't make it to law school, but that's what he wanted to do, because in those days, you either had to go to South Africa, and then from South Africa try and get to Britain, or Britain and the colonialists were not quite encouraging for Africans to be lawyers. So my father didn't make it, although he could have qualified to, because he was a very intelligent man. So I grew up with a father who had wanted to be a lawyer. And in between growing up and seeing maybe what I was capable of, he tended to make me do what he did not do in his own life.
And what lessons did your father and mother pass on to you that have served you so well in your career? What were the lessons they taught you?
My father and my mother taught me one thing, that I was special and I had to get on in life. They recognized the fact that I was, I seemed to be a child who was determined from the word go, not the kind of child who would go out and play with the children in the village, but sit down and maybe look at a book or try to get on and learn something new. As I said also, I was born in a family of 8. My brother was my first brother whom I was number 2 in the family. My elder brother was a genius. And when I say a genius, I mean a genius. He went to school. He became the first neurosurgeon. Went to Johns Hopkins School. Was a professor at McGill University. So he's somebody who pushed us. My parents then thought we all had to do as well as he had done. And then the sister who came out after me also was a teacher, a graduate. The brother who came after her was a graduate and an agriculturalist in Kenya. Then the girl who came after him, the daughter who came after him was, what was Auntie Joe? A teacher, graduate teacher. Then the one other one who came after him was another graduate teacher, went into development after that. And then the brother who came after him is lives in Canada now, was a professional. and then my youngest sister. So we actually were all graduates. So the competition in the family was very high. You couldn't afford to do otherwise.
And so you did very well in school at the lower levels and then in high school?
I did well, but then I must say that I had more home help than maybe the other children whom I went to school with. Coming from a family where people worked very hard, and from my parents who knew, who were professionals, maybe we were a little bit luckier than the other children. Like my father, the girls around me and of my age, not all of them necessarily went to school. We were very few who were able to make things work.
So the seed to be a lawyer, was that planted by your father? And
That was planted by my father.
And at what point did you say, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be a lawyer?
When I was in high school, I began reading a lot, and with my father's encouragement that you had a mind, you have a mind of a very incisive mind, you could be a good lawyer. And then also, maybe the breaking point came when my father went into prison for 3 months for no fault of his. He was very friendly to the chief, and the chief was leaving his job, and he didn't want my father to take over that post. So he got my father into trouble for no trouble of his own. And for me to go into that prison and see my father, that broke me. And I decided I had to do something for victims. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at that moment, you knew you were going to be a lawyer.
I knew that I was going to be a lawyer.
And then you ended up going to Dar es Salaam. You were the first woman to get a law degree. So what was that like with all those men?
First of all, I must talk about my high school.
Okay.
I went to Alliance Girls' School. That was the school that people who would make it went to. It was a school for leadership, and I was lucky to get in. So I went to Alliance High School. Then when I was in Alliance High School, I had now made up my mind that I was going to do law. Unfortunately, it was a missionary school. And my lovely head mistress, Mrs. Bruce, would hear none of this. A decent girl didn't go to do law. You became a secretary. Even a secretary was too much for her to take. You became a nurse or you became a teacher. So at that time, because we were so few and Dar es Salaam University was starting, they would send out somebody to come and tell us about the school, about the university. So I remember very well that a professor of mine, McCausline, came and went to Alliance Boys' School, and that was the boys' school which was equivalent to our girls' school, and talked to the boys. Mrs. Bruce would not let him come and talk to me. I had indicated to her that I wanted to be a lawyer. She wouldn't let him. My father, who was in town visiting, heard that the headmistress wasn't going to let me see Professor McCausline. So my brother came to the school with a friend of his and said he could take me out because I was doing A-levels then, and we would go out of school. So I came into town with my father, and my father had arranged that I come and meet Professor McCausline. So that is how interested he was in me getting to Dar es Salaam to go and do law.
And so you did apply, and you did get admitted.
I applied. I got in. Luckily enough, I got in. I did well enough, and I got into the University of Dar es Salaam. Going to University of Dar es Salaam was a big thing. If I was not only just given an air ticket by the Kenya government, I was given an air ticket, dressing allowance, and money for my pocket money, because this was a big thing. The government was interested that at least we should train as lawyers. So I went off to Dar es Salaam University.
And what was that, being in the university with all men? And what made you determined to hang in there, even though you were the only woman?
Most of the students who were in class, we all became friends. I have a lot of male friends in the country now, whom I actually, some of them whom I went off and sat with on the same bench. And then luckily also, one of the girls whom I was with at school had managed to get into Dar es Salaam University. So we were two of us now from Kenya, and we were mainly about, the class was not more than, I don't think we were more than 20. So if you wanted to go and do law in the East African countries, that is Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, you went to Dar es Salaam University, because that's the only university that offered law. If you wanted to do medicine, or you went to Uganda, to Makerere University, and if you wanted to do the technical subjects like engineering, you came to Nairobi University. So in our class, of course, we were there from Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, and we were very few.
And you decided when you graduated that you would become a prosecutor.
I didn't decide at that time.
How did that
because
happen?
Because when we came from the university for vacation, the government would take you to a particular branch, either they would take you to a particular department to work in, and the Attorney General's office was the one which was least equipped by then. There weren't many Africans in there. So when we came for the long vacation, we were paid and we were told to go and work in those ministries. So I began going to the Attorney General's office and working there even before I qualified. And when I qualified, I actually wanted to do prosecution. So I went to the Attorney General's office in the prosecution side.
And you were there for a period of time. And at some point, when did the idea of going on the bench, how did that come about, that magistrate position?
Okay. I was there for about 3 or 4 years. And during that time, not only did I didn't do only criminal prosecutions, I did registration of companies, registration of marriages. Oh, registration of marriages was beautiful. Because then when I was in Mombasa, as working as a registrar of marriages, I was able to marry all these girls. And that's when I began realizing something was not quite right. Because I would see the same girl, whenever there was a ship coming into dock, I would see this girl comes in, I marry her today. And then after 3 or 4 weeks, when another ship comes in, she comes again. Then I marry her again. I began saying something is not right here. So I said, what is going on? And in those days, it was so easy to get a special license and come and get married. So these girls would come in, and after I had seen what was going on, I began getting very interested in what is happening. Of course, then the ship would sail away, then these girls would remain there. And they claimed to have been married, of course, tear the marriage certificate, and then come back again with somebody else. So I began taking interest in what are these girls trying to do? What is driving this? So I said, they are getting married simply because they want to go on the ship and get money. And that began annoying me, even at that very early stage in my life. So I also worked, of course, in the commercial sector. I did companies, what have you. But then I didn't realize that my heart was not really in prosecutions and doing Attorney General's work, Attorney General's office work. And I applied to go to the bench. And luckily enough, I was taken. There were not many African girls or women on the bench. There was nobody. There were only 2 Indian ladies. One of them was the former Chief Justice's daughter, and another one, her husband was an advocate.
And And you said your heart was not into being a prosecutor, but you applied for the magistrate's position. What did you hope to do and achieve as a magistrate, your contribution to justice and society?
I wanted to sit on the bench. I wanted to know, I wanted to be able to see it firsthand what made these people go into prison. Remember, my father had been to prison for 3 months, and that's why it had pushed me to be a lawyer. That is where I wanted to be. That's where I wanted to be.
And that time, again, you were alone as a woman. You rose to the position of being senior resident magistrate. What advice do you have to women and to men that want to pursue a career on the bench like you did?
The advice I have is this, that it pays to begin from the bottom. It is my experience at that very lower end of the justice system that it managed to get me to where I eventually got. And if you can make it as a magistrate in the administration of justice, then you can do it to the end. It is a very, very busy station, as you would know, Judge.
Yes.
That's where everything starts, and that's where there's a lot of work. So, if you begin at that level, as you come up, you can appreciate what is going on. Even when you are sitting on appeal from magistrates' courts, you are much more understanding of the position than somebody who came on at a higher level and does not understand how busy that beginning is.
And the commitment you made to the people who came before you, the everyday Kenyans maybe that didn't have an education, Kenyans that didn't have the kind of advantages you had, what did you think your obligation was in terms of how you treated them?
The most important thing, says Judge, most of the people who would come to me were Africans and Kenyans. The bench was still full of Indians and white people. I understood these people more than maybe most other judges and magistrates would, because they were my people. I understood how they lived. I understood where they were coming from. I'll give you an example. Something that really caught me at the beginning was that because I was a woman, I was given this court where women come Monday morning in my court. I would have about more than 50 women who have been picked up by the police. Somehow the police would pick them up on Friday or on Saturday evening, lock them up in the remand, on custody, and bring them up on Monday morning. So as I'm walking in, see a young girl, a young woman. This woman is sitting outside in my court, waiting to be heard. So as they come in, I asked them, "What were you picked up for?" "Oh, I was just walking. They saw me walking with a man, and I was arrested." "What were you arrested for?" "Loitering." And they said I'm a prostitute. At the beginning, it didn't hit me. I thought, oh, maybe they have done something wrong. But after about 2 or 3 months, I said, this cannot work. Why pick them up on Saturday or on Friday and keep them in custody until Monday? Most of them have got children at home. Some of them are carrying babies. I began saying, no, this can't work. And I made noise. I said, there is no reason why we should be picking up these women and bringing them, putting them in for 3 days. Some of them have left children at home, and then bring them on Monday morning. I said, let's have a city court which will deal with this matter. If you arrest them, you take them there immediately and they be charged on whatever happens. So that was something that really did begin upsetting me from the word go. But because I was an African woman, I understood them. I saw what their problem was. She couldn't walk, or an African woman would not walk on the streets within no time you're being arrested for being a prostitute.
And that noise you made on behalf of the women and that reform, because
Yes.
I cannot even list for this show the number of commissions, the number of reports, the number of interests you have had focusing on women and women's rights and rights for children. Why has that been so important to you during the course of your career?
Judge, remember, when I came out of university, we were very, very few women. As I said, maybe one woman on the bench for quite some time before the others came on, thank God. And these women, and most of the Kenyan women, or even the society, did not think of me as a magistrate on the other side. I was supposed to understand what women's issues were. And because I was there, and I keep on saying, I was in the right place at the right time. So I managed to get to sit on most of these commissions which had to deal with women and children. I mean, some of them much later on in my life. But then that's when I really developed an interest in women's rights. And from the bottom of my heart, not one single day did I forget that I'm a woman. So I look at these women differently. I saw the problems my own friends went through as married women. I saw situations where most of my friends and people who are quite educated didn't understand whether they were married or they were not married. And the problems that society was going through at that time. So I said, well, I have the advantage in that I'm educated, I'm a lawyer, maybe I can be of help in one way or the other.
And that feeling that you could help and make noise,
Mm-hmm.
you then were propelled through the judiciary, at least in my view, because you became a high court judge after resident
Yes.
legal advisor. You were the first woman on the Court of Appeals. You know, not everybody feels that obligation you felt, that commitment, that because you were there, you had to speak up and make noise on behalf of women and children.
It was my passion. I felt it was my responsibility. And then, thank God, all the other women, as they came onto the bench, and it didn't take long. Hardly had I got on, then all other women began coming on. Justice Joyce Owuor, Justice Roslyn Nambuye, all these other women began coming on the bench. And we actually then began ganging up. Not really ganging up in a bad way, but we began looking at things very differently. Sooner or later, we were now making women association, judges association, so that we could try and look at our own different problems. And when we got onto these associations, like the Women Judges Association, we didn't go there to eat cucumber and bread. No, we worried about women's rights and children's rights.
And you were a founder and president of that.
I was a founder, and then Justice Owuor came on, Justice Nambuye came on, and many others came on. Yeah.
And your contributions have continued at the High Court and at the Court of Appeal. For how long were you a judge on the bench wearing that black robe? Just roughly.
17 years?
17 years, because you started in 1971, I believe.
No, 71 is when I became a magistrate.
Magistrate,
yes.
Right.
And then I went on to up to 10 years as a magistrate, a senior magistrate. Then I came on to the High Court. And when I came to the High Court, of course, it was very interesting. I had been basically doing criminal work in the lower court. And when I got to the High Court, deep inside me, I said, I will never touch crime again. I want to do real law now. Real law meant seeing all those women in front of me, doing different things every day, doing family law, doing commercial law, doing all other law, except doing criminal law. But it was interesting when I got to the High Court. During the interview, I won't say who, I was asked, are you really up to it? Can you really, take on High Court work? I said, well, I've been doing much heavier work on the lower bench. I think I'm ready. 10 years is enough. I think I'm ready. And then little complications came on.
Mm-hmm.
Little problems here and there. First of all, I was now moving from one side of the building to the other side of the building, where the judges sat, had their courts, not the other side where all the magistrates sat. And you hardly ever crossed to the High Court side. Most of the judges were still by then, and I keep on saying, either they were either white judges or Indian judges. There were a few African judges. So the issue, as I joined, issue number one, what are we going to do with her? They thought I was old, there was something wrong with me. So just little things that I had no toilet, for instance. I had no
restroom, no toilet.
No restroom. So I came back and we were having coffee in the Chief Justice's office, and the Chief Justice, how are you getting on? I see you walking across to the Hilton Hotel at about 10:30 before you start sessions. What do you go to do there? I said, oh, I have to find a restroom. And he said, why? And I said, oh, there isn't any here for me. And he said, before he could finish what he was saying, the male judge said, no, she cannot use our restroom. She can't. And somebody asked, but why? Said, oh, she does things differently. So I said, okay. It became such a heated topic, just like it had been when they had to find a title for me. Some of the judges made a big joke out of it. I couldn't just be called Justice so-and-so. They had to make a difference. So they looked around the Commonwealth and found out that you called them Lady Justice so-and-so. So that they were quite willing. So long as you add lady to it, it's okay. But she cannot be called Miss. She can't be called Mr. Justice. So I said, okay. The Chief Justice, after listening to all that complications, people complaining, I shouldn't use the restroom, he said, Judge, come. He took his own key, walked, took me to his toilet, restroom, and told me, please use this. Remember, when you're inside, to lock it. I said, I remember that. So little things like that.
Yeah.
But they were actually quite big problems.
Yeah.
To a point where when the presiding judge would want only to allocate family matters to me, I said, oh, no. I'm a judge like each one of you. I will not be in the family court alone. Well, there wasn't a family court in, but my list for cases would be only divorce, whatever. And then I said, oh, no. This is not going to be the case. Go back to the Chief Justice again. I'm getting the wrong course list. The Chief Justice calls again and says, okay, bring that course list. I think we should move to the other section. Little things like that, you have to be able to speak up. Otherwise, you're not just there for you yourself. You are there for the others as well. I didn't want the women who came after me, the lady judges who came after me, to go through what I had gone through.